Hello children, welcome to the 10th standard social studies class. Hope you are all fine and safe at home. Today we are going to start chapter 6, that is the pupil. Children, in this lesson you will know how and why a government collects information about the people of the country. Children, development of all is the main aim of any democratic government. The democratic governments try to provide the chances for development to all the people. For this, the available resources have to be shared by all the people for their development. Jobs, food, resources, all these have to be shared with many people. That's why sometimes excess growth of population is blamed for problems like lack of jobs, shortage of food, houses, facilities, etc. To see that all the necessities of people should be available to them, and for distribution of facilities like health and education, for providing jobs and facilities to people, for all this government needs to study the population or the people for a category wise, area wise, age wise and gender wise analysis. So children, I hope you can understand this. It becomes necessary for government to study the population in different categories, like what is the number of population, what are the different ages or age groups in the population, how many are male, female, and how many are old people. So in this way, in different categories, government collects information about the people. Then only the government can plan for providing things and facilities to people. So, study of population numbers, distribution and characteristics of population is very necessary for a democratic government. By this study, government can plan how to provide schools and colleges, hospitals, roads and rails, or to provide pensions, distribution of food grains, etc. So, government collects different types of informations about people once in every 10 years in India. So, this process is called census. So children, you must remember this definition of census, that is, the census of India provide us with information regarding the population of our country. Or in a better way, the definition is, a census is the procedure of systematically acquiring and recording the information about the members of a given population. So, what is a census, children? First, it is a procedure of systematically acquiring, means taking the information systematically. Okay, about whom? About the number of the people, about all the number of the people, and also it should be recorded, then only it will be called a census, and it takes place in India once in 10 years. Once in 10 years, information is collected about all the people living in India. So, this is about census, children. So, children, in India, first census was taken in 1872, in the year 1872, when India was under the British rule. But the first complete census, however, was taken in 1881. So, remember that though the first census was in 1872, it was not complete. complete census was taken in 1881. Then onwards, the censuses have been held regularly every 10th year. So, the latest census was taken in 2011, and according to this, the population of India is 1210 million people, or generally we call as 121 crores. So, 121 crore or 1210 million is the population of India, but it is according to 2011 census. Remember children, it is the 2011 census which tells that population of India is 121 crore or 1210 million. So, out of this, according to 2011 census, 62.4 crore are men, 58.6 crore are women. Now, look at a recent census children. Though it was not the periodical census, a midterm census in 2018, an estimation was taken out according to which the population of India amounted to approximately 1.33 billion or 133 crore. So, a recent study 2018 which says that population of India is 1.33 billion or 133 crores. So, India is the second largest populated country in the world after China, and Andhra Pradesh state population is 40.9 million or 4.97 crore according to a recent study. So, next census will be taken in 2021 children. So, children, this census provides us with a lot of information such as how many old people are there, what are the occupations of different people, means what are the different jobs people are doing, about how many houses are there for people, what are the education facilities are available, religion wise how many people are there. So, all this information is provided in the census and recorded in the census. So, all this work is done by the official, that is Registrar General and Census Commission of India. This is the department or office responsible for collecting the census, the Registrar General and Census Commission of India. So, this office organizes the collection and recording of this information, that is called census. Now, children, the government employs many people for a survey, for a door-to-door survey. Generally, the government teachers and many other officials are employed for this collection of census, and the people who do this survey go from house to house and find out the number of people living in every house, every village, town and city. You can remember or you can ask your elders sometimes, means in the time of collection of census, the people come to your houses, they will ask the ages, names and a different information about the family members. So, that is collection of census. So, children, now look at the topic, that is what does the census show. So, first and foremost feature that a census shows to us is age structure. So, children, remember that age structure is one important information given by this census procedure. So, what is age structure, children? The age structure of a population refers to the number of males and females in different age groups in a country. So remember children, age structure, number of females and males, but in different age groups. So age structure gives the age groups in the males and age groups in the females also. So it is one of the most basic characteristic of the population. So by this the government will know how many people are there in the country in different age structures or different age categories. Now basing on this, government also categorized the population into 3 categories. So the population of our nation is generally grouped into 3 broad categories. First category is children. So who are children? Who are below 15 years. All those people who are below 15 years age, they will be termed as children according to the census. Next, 15 to 59 years. This age group is called working age. And above 15 years, 59 years, above 59 years people are termed as aged people. So children, remember these 3 groups according to the age structure provided by the census: children, working age, aged. So children are below 15 years. Working age means 15 to 59 years, and above 59 years are called aged. So these are the 3 categories according to the age structure. Now children, let us see some features of each of these categories. First one, children. So they know that, you know that they have to be taken care by the family. They are small children. They need food, clothing, education, medical care, and these things they cannot get by themselves. So family will, or elders of the family will provide them. So usually they do not earn their income to support themselves. So generally most of the families, the elders will provide all this support to the children. It is not desirable that children should force to work. Children have to study and develop mentally and physically. So it is not desirable that they have to work. So they will be put in studies or physical activities for their development only. But it is seen that in some cases where children are forced to work, so that is undesirable or that is not desirable. It is because of their economic conditions. So government tries to safeguard those children who are forced to work. So government tried to save the children from the work pressure and put them in the houses where they will be provide studies and developmental activities. The next category children is working age. That is 15 to 59 years age group is called working age. Usually this group forms the working population in a society. But children, it does not mean that every person of 15 years and above is working. So it is in a general conception. Okay, generally it is seen that, or it is seen that 15 years above the people have the ability to work. So that's why it is called working age. So that does not mean that everybody above 15 are working only. Above 15 may be studying in colleges or universities. So they may be students. So it is not necessary. But this age can be called working age because after 15 years they can be permitted some works to do the works. So another important feature of this age group is that they are also biologically reproductive. That means above 15 or above 20 years age people can marry and give birth to children. That is biologically reproductive. So most people in this age group desire decent income and security of work. So in this age group the people look for decent income, decent jobs, and they want security of work. Children and the aged often depend on the earning of this group. So this working age group is the category who supports the children and aged in the family. Okay, children, because this is the category who earns the income in the families. So they will provide the necessary spendings for the other members of the family. The third category children is aged, above 59 years. So all those who are above 59 years are termed to be aged. Here 59 years if they cross, if they are already working in some organizations or some departments, it is expected that they will get retirement. So who are working in the salaried employment or in organized sector will get retirement, and after that retirement who are in the organized sector or in the salaried employment, they will get some pension. But however, many of the people are in unorganized sector. Children, already you know in the previous lessons that many people, 92% of the workforce are in the unorganized sector. So a vast majority of agricultural laborers, domestic workers, construction workers and others usually continue their work as long as it is physically possible. So children above 59 years, they are aged, but it is not necessary that they should stop working. It is desirable that they should stop working, but depending on their economic situations and their physical abilities, they prefer to work or sometimes they prefer to retire. So children, as you can imagine that this aged category, aged people, they do not have good support from their physical fitness to work or to do the jobs. So these groups depend on their families for support, because now they are unable to work, they are physically not very fit for the jobs, though they may be doing the day to day works very easily, but for the jobs they may be feeling some difficulty. So it is also possible that their medical expenses are also very higher. So in this age, they need the support of the working age people in the family. So these aged people, now they are aged, but when they are in the working age, they worked, they earned the income and they supported the family. Now they expect the other people who are now working age, they should support them for their day to day maintenance. Here government also have some special schemes for their groups, like old age pensions. Apart from this, government also have some schemes for other groups, like for students there is a midday meal scheme, that means lunch is provided in the government schools. Another scheme of the government is Anganwadi program. Anganwadi is the nursery schools provided by the government. So here the kids are provided with some nutritious food, also necessary vaccines and medicines. So government takes care that the age of kids or very small children, and for the aged groups, government should provide some help for them. So here children, you can know that government will be there will be need for the government to know what is the number of the children, what is the number of the ageds, so that it can provide the necessary Anganwadis, or it can forward some pensions to the old age people. Here again government need that information, that who are not getting any sort of pensions or who are in the unorganized sector. So by all this, government will make a better plan to provide the support to the people who do not have any support in otherwise. Now children, another important information provided by the census is sex ratio. Sex ratio is the number of females per 1000 males in the population. So that means how many females are there, or how many women or girls are there for every 1000 males or boys or men in the population, that is called sex ratio. This information is an important social indicator to measure the extent of equality between men and women in the society. So children, why this information is needed? It is because by this information we will know what is the extent of equality, what is the extent of equal opportunities to develop between men and women. If there are equal opportunities to develop, equal opportunities to survive, then the number will be almost equal. It may not be exact equal, but almost equal. But this is not the case in India. We notice that the number of females in India has consistently been lower than that of men. This female-male ratio or the sex ratio is a cause of concern since it indicates a hidden form of discrimination. So children, it is seen that the number of female or number of women is lower than that of men in India. So it indicates there is a hidden form of discrimination against the women or against the girls. That means they are not given the chance for proper development or proper survival. Women and girls in particular face unequal opportunities for education and development. Boys and men are getting more and more advantage in the male dominant society. Though the situation is changing recently, though the situation is not the same at present, many years ago, if you go back to some 50-100 years, women was confined to household works only. They are not given the chances for education. Even for the food and medicine or any type of health facilities also, boys and men were preferred, but women was kept backward. But in the recent time, the situation is changing. Even the most basic needs of nutrition, child care and health also were discriminated against the women. That is the reason why for a long time until now we see that number of females per 1000 males is always less in India. Now you can see here a table, children, where it shows how many females are there for every 1000 males in different period of years. Like in 1951, it was seen that for every 1000 males, 946 females were there. Like 1961, for every 1000 males, 941 female. 1971, for every 1000 males, every 1000 men and boys, there were 930 female or women and girls are there in India. Like that, if you see that sex ratio is in 1981, that is 934. In 1991, sex ratio 929. So children, for sex ratio we indicate only one number, that is the number of female, because already we know that male number. The number of male is 1000, that is constant. So we indicate only 933. So 933 means that is the number of female per 1000 males in 2001. So like this, children, the latest information, that means according to 2011 census, not very latest, that is according to 2011 census, there were 940 females, that means women and girls, for 1000 male or 1000 boys and men in India. So according to 2011, the sex ratio of India is 940. That means there were only 940 females for 1000 males in India. So you can see that always there is less number of women in India than the men. Here you can see a difference, children. Sex ratio of India and USA given. You see in India it is 940. Already I told you, that means that For every 1000 male, 940 female. But in USA you can see a different scenario. 1050, sex ratio is 1050. That means for 1000 males there are 1050 female are there in USA. So that means in USA women have a better chance to develop, better chance to survival, for education, for jobs, for getting health facilities and nutrition. So they are having better chances. So the number is more in USA. Like in India, if you say in different states, if you compare, Haryana 879, Punjab 895, AP 993. But if you see a big difference in Kerala, that is 1040 female for 1000 males. So Kerala, you know children, where the literacy rate is almost very high, above 99%. There the number of females is 1040 for 1000 males. So here you can see when the women have a better chance for education, their development will occur. They can develop in different ways, so the number will also increase. So here it shows that wherever the number of female is less, number of women is less, there is a discrimination. They are not given the proper chances to develop for education or for other facilities. So here it is a very important information given by the census, so that government make a good plans to develop the important half population, that is female population of our country, to give them better chances to develop, to give them good facilities, and what are the schemes for them. For that government needed the number, how many number of females are there, in which categories. So all this is provided by the census. Now children, it is seen that discrimination is slowly now reducing. You can see a different scenario in recent times. The girls and women are in jobs, are in education, are in very high profile positions. So this is a different scenario you can observe at the present. So women's education has been a powerful force behind this reduction of the discrimination against women. So this is definitive evidence that women's literacy and schooling will reduce child mortality and work against the selective neglect of the health of the girls. So if the women are literate, women are educated or literate, then it will reduce the child mortality. Child mortality means the death of the child in a very young age or below 1 or 2 years. So here, by the literacy and education of women, this type of situation can be prevented. So now children, let us look at literacy rate. According to the census of 2011, a person aged 7 years and above who can read and write with understanding in any at least one language is treated as literate. So children, what is the meaning of literate? Literate means a person who is 7 years above and he can read and write and by understanding at least one language. So always remember children, for considering the literate or literacy rate, we will take only 7 years and above people only. Below 7 years, we will not count for literacy rate because still they are learning. So 7 years and above who can read and write and understand at least any one language, he is called a literate person. Okay children, so educated means they will have some certificate like 10th class or intermediate or degree. That certificates, if they have completed some period of study, that is education. So literacy means at least they can read and write and understand at least one language, that is literacy, that is they are literate. If they do not know, what we call them, that is they are illiterate. If the person do not know at least one language to read and write, they is illiterate. Now children, literacy is a key for socio-economic progress. Literacy is very important for the development of a person. So at present only literacy will not give any better chance. That person need to skilled or educated. So minimum literacy is very important for the socio-economic progress. Now children, here census provides some data regarding the literacy rates. At independence in 1947, 12% of our population was only literate. Only 12% children. That means out of 100, 12 persons only know to read and write. In 2001, it was 64.84%. That means in 2001, 64 or 65 people out of 100 were literate. And it grew to 74.4%, 74.04% by 2011. That means in 2011, in the year 2011, 74 people out of 100 people know to read and write. And here 2011 census gives us another data. That means the men were 82% men were literate. Okay, and women were only 65%. Okay, so there is a gap, children. Okay, there is a gap between the literacy of men and women. So in 2011, here also you can see that women were given less chances to go to schools and colleges, so their literacy rate is lower than the men. Now children, you have seen that the age group of 15 to 59 are called working age people. So they might work the whole year or only a part of the year. This depends on the availability of the work and their own capacity to work. Now this working age population are very important for the country because they will produce the goods and services. It will make our national income. Also it will generate their personal income, per capita income. So this working age group are very important for the country. So here government tries to understand them, analyze them in a better way. So the census of India groups them into 4 categories. Census of India groups the working age population into 4 categories. First one is cultivators. So as you know children, the traditional or very old age important livelihood in our India is cultivation. So first category of the working age is cultivators or were the farmers who farm or supervise the land that they own or taken on rent. So cultivators are those people who have their own land or take some land from the rent for rent and make the laborers to work in that land and cultivate, produce the crops. The second category of the working age is agricultural laborers. These agricultural laborers are those who work on others' lands for wages or for daily wages. But these people don't have their own land. That is the second category. Now third category is workers in household industries. Household industry means children that is not a small or a small scale or medium scale industries. So in such industries or in such production activities who are engaged, such workers are in the third category. So they are manufacturing or repairing some product at home or in a cottage industries, okay, like dehusking of paddy or making beedies or potters, weavers, repairing of footwear, manufacture of toys. All such people who are engaged in activities, they are in the third activities. They are the workers in the household industries. And apart from these 3 children, you know that there are workers who are employed in the big factories, big industries, in the organized sector, large enterprises. All these people who are the other workers, they are in the 4th categories, or who are the businessmen, traders. Okay, so even the casual laborers. So all other occupations are under the 4th category. Okay children, so in this way working age people are also divided into 4 categories according to the census. So children, as you know that the population of India is constantly increasing. So this is the change in the size of the population. So how can we calculate or estimate the change in the size of the population? Change in the size of the population is the difference in the number of inhabitants of a country. Inhabitant means the people who are living in the country, they are called inhabitants. So change in the size of the population is calculated by a difference. First is that we have to know what is the number of inhabitants of the country in a specific period. First, during the last 10 years. Okay, so such a change can be expressed in two ways. Here, children, before 10 years, what was the number, and after 10 years, what is the number? If we know this, we can know the difference, and we can know the change in the size of the population. Okay, children. So, to calculate the change in the size of the population, we must know the number of the people who are living in the country during the last 10 years. So, before 10 years, how many people are living, and now how many people are living? If we calculate the difference, we can know that change in the size of the population, whether it is increased or whether it is decreased. So, now this change can be expressed in two ways. One is absolute numbers. By number, by subtraction, we get the number. By that number, when we express this, that is called as an absolute number. And if we calculate in the term of percentage, so that is as percentage. So, as absolute number or as percentage also, we can express the change in the population. The absolute numbers added each decade is the magnitude of increase. Magnitude of increase. So, how many number are increasing, that is the absolute number added. So, it is obtained by simply subtracting the earlier population from the later population. That means the present population, it is higher, then from the present population we deduct the earlier population. So, by this we get the absolute number added. If the result is a positive number, the population increased. If it is a negative number, the population has decreased. So, children, population change in a place is equal to number of births plus number of in-migrants. So, how many people are born in that place? How many people came from other areas to that place? Okay, minus number of deaths plus number of out-migrants. The number of people died and how many number of people went out from that area. So, in this way, we can know the population change in a place. So, here you can see, children, three important data is needed to know the population change: birth rate, death rate and migration. So, birth, death and migration are the three important components of population. First component is birth rate, second component is death rate and the third component is migration. So, by this calculation, when we get a positive number, that means population is increased, and if it is a negative number, it shows that population is decreased. So, birth, death and migration are three important components of population. Now, children, birth rate is calculated by number of people born in an area out of every 1000 people. Okay, so the number of people born in an area out of every 1000 people is called birth rate. Like for example, in 1992, out of every 1000 people, 29 people are born. So, it is 29 is the birth rate. Like that, the death rate, out of every 1000, how many people died, that is called death rate. For example, in 1992, the death rate was 10. Out of the 1000, 10 people died. So, it was 10. Now, what is the growth rate? You can see here, children, birth rate is higher than the death rate. So, that means here population is growing. So, how can we calculate the growth rate? Here you can see that number of people grown, number of people increased is 19. So, growth rate is 19 by 1000, or it can be called 1.9%. Okay, so that is the growth rate of the population. At present, India with a population of 1.33 billion is the second largest populated country in the world after China. To examine causes for the growth of Indian population, we need to look at both death rates and birth rates. So, children, from the period of the British rule to present, a large number of years experienced a steady growth in the population of India. To examine what are the causes for the growth of the Indian population, we need to look at the details of death rates and birth rates also. So, there has been a rapid decline in death rates, but birth rate continue to be high. So, because the death rates are lowered, but birth rates continue to high, the population is continuously increasing. Children, now look at the reasons for a decline in the death rates after independence. First is famine relief steps by the government. In the British period, there were many instances of famine where people did not get any food to eat. There were lack of or shortage of food. But after the independence, government provided many famine relief steps. Government provided food to many poor people. Next, movement of grain and ration shops. The food grains were moved to the places where they are not available, and government also opened many ration shops. Next, government taken steps to control many epidemics like cholera, plague, malaria, etc. Government provided drinking water and better sanitation in many areas. And at the same time, there were advances in medicines like antibiotics and vaccines were discovered, and many people saved from the death caused by the epidemics and diseases. High percentage of young people in population. The young people were high number in population, because of which further the number of population increased. Couples wish to have more children due to doubts on survival. In the time children, there was survival rate is very less. Kids mortality rate was very high. That means many kids used to die in very small age. So the couples who are married, they got a doubt or got fear about the survival of their children. So because of that, they wish to have more children. High birth rates together with declining death rates led to high rates of population growth. So in this way, when birth rates were very high, but death rates were declining, this situation led to higher rate of population growth. So children, here you can see that small family norms are followed by people at present, and you can see that people are made awareness about the burdens of the large family and happiness of the small family by these posters. And children, since 1981, birth rates have also started declining. So you can see this table 1951 onwards. The percentage change in the population is declining. It indicated that birth rate is also declining. The third component of population change is migration. Migration is the movement of people across regions and territories. When the people are moving from one place to other place to settle in some other areas, that is called migration. So migration can be internal. If it is within the country, that is called internal. So here children, remember that internal migration does not change the population of the country, but it may change the population of the city or population of the state. While international migration, in this type of migration, the person will move from one country to other country. So international migration will change the size of the population of a country, of a state, of a city or village also. So international migration does not change the size of the population. So children, another term about population, important concept is population density. What is population density, children? Population density is calculated as the number of persons per unit area or per square kilometer. How many people are living per square kilometer area? This calculation is called population density. We can calculate it by dividing population by area. With the number of population and by area in kilometers. The number of population should be divided by area in kilometers. How many kilometers area? So it will give the population density. It will give the number of people who are living in 1 square kilometer area in a state or a country or a district, whatever we want to calculate. So India is one of the most densely populated countries of the world. The population density of India in the year 2011 was 382 persons per square kilometer. So in the one square kilometer area, in average, the number of people living in India is 382 persons. So if you see again, if you see state wise, in Bihar highest density 1106 persons, but in Arunachal Pradesh only 17 persons. So it depends on different factors, children. This we will study later. Here if you see, Assam and most of the peninsular states have moderate population densities. Here like hilly, dissected, rocky nature of the terrain means rocky areas, moderate or to low rainfall, shallow and less fertile soil, all this will affect the population. Because of this things, it is unfavorable for the people to live in this area. So here population will be less. While the northern plains and Kerala in the south, it has high population densities because of the flat plains, fertile soils, abundant rainfall. Here it is favorable living conditions are provided in the northern plains and Kerala by the natural factors. So here naturally population will be high. So population density depends on the conditions which make the people suitable to live in that area or not suitable to live in that area. Okay children, with this we came to the end of this lesson. We have discussed the important concepts or important topics of this lesson. I hope you will try to remember all these topics. Okay children, we will meet you in the next class. Thank you.